Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Great to be here with you. Can't wait to get into today's Mindset and Motivation Monday. This is a social media post that I saw, and once I saw it, I knew I had to share it with you. So the amazing thing is that for someone like myself, even though I'm not the hugest advocate for social media, I think you can really go down a negative rabbit hole. I think that there's a lot of body image issues that can happen with social media. I think that there's a lot of aspirational issues that can help with looking at social media. People always putting on their, best act for everyone. But the truth is, depending on who you follow and how you curate your feed, there can also be a lot of good. There can be a lot of positivity. And so I do like to share that. I like to be able to say there are things on social media that we would never be exposed to if we didn't have these free platforms. So like I said, there's a lot of negatives, but there can also be some positive. And one of the people, I've actually had this psychologist on my show before. Her name is Dr. Nicole LePera. She doesn't even know that I'm doing this podcast. We can link up the interview I did with her. It's a few years old now, but the information is still pertinent. That's the thing about evergreen content, meaning like if it worked 100 years ago and it worked 50 years ago, it's still going to work here today. And so I'll link that up. All the podcast show notes today will be at stephencabral.com/3083. But I saw this post and I wanted to share it with you, but I'm also going to give you my take. Again, my take is always me. Your subjective view is you. And I think it's just how we view the lens of life through that. But the post was basically listed as, here are the 7 top tips from couples that make it. And make it meaning that they've stayed together for 10, 20 plus years and counting. What do they do differently? How do they look at life differently? How do they look at their relationship differently than maybe others as well? So when I saw this, it was clean, it was easy. I'm going to give you what Dr. LePera says. I'm going to share with you just some of my tips that I've seen from my practice as well. I'm not a relationship expert by any means. I'm not saying that. But what I do see and what I have been fortunate enough to work with is tens of thousands of clients personally. And I've seen how relationships affect their health, their stress levels. And so I want to share with you is just some of the things that I've seen be beneficial, not necessarily just the negatives. All right, so let's dive right into it. The first tip that Dr. LePera gives, and I'll just say tip number 1, is partners first, not family first. Now, this was a little odd, but it definitely caught my attention, and maybe that was the part to it that I was supposed to read into it. But basically, let's just say you and your wife, you and your husband, you and your partner come together. You have your in-laws on both sides, your siblings maybe on both sides. You've got just, family on both sides. And sometimes they want things for you that aren't necessarily in the best interests of both of you as a couple. And so when it comes down to it, and you don't have to agree with all these, like I'm not saying that you agree with all of them, but when it comes down to it, your relationship together, if you want it to work for the long term, you're going to need to put both of your needs ahead of other families' needs. Now, when I say that, it doesn't mean that it should be exclusionary. It doesn't mean that you don't help out family. But what it does mean is that at points there might be conflict. And if you want the relationship to really work, you got to put your partner first. It's really what it's about. So I thought that was a fantastic tip. And again, something there'll always be nuances around that, but it makes sense to me. Number 2 is this, that for couples that really make it, they're friends. So if you're going to be with this person for the next 30, 40, 50 plus years of your life, you have to be friends. It's going to be such a challenge if you are not friends. You're living together, you're sharing the same space, you're going on vacations where you might be with each other for 24 hours a day, right? Outside of work, all those different types of things. You have to be friends. What does that even mean? Well, it means that like when you're, and I'll just interchange spouse, partner, etc. like as we move through this. So when your spouse comes home at night and you're genuinely interested, like, how was your day, right? Or you come home, you ask them, how was their day? And you catch up. It's actually wanting to know how their day was, how they're doing, how you could be supportive. The same thing you would do for a friend. So it's not treating your partner different than you would treat a friend. It's that you're genuinely interested in them, how they're doing, how their day was. So again, another great tip. Number 3 was this. Together, you've gone through some really dark times together, some difficult times together. Might not even be just the two of you in your relationship. Might be with the death of a loved one, family incidents, hardships at work, maybe the loss of a job, someone else had to take over for, like whatever it might be. But you helped each other out. You made it through whatever you need to do. You reestablished or established deeper levels of trust in the relationship. So that's why it's not always, and truthfully, and maybe unfortunately, we're all going to have to go through challenges in our life and probably in our relationships. If you make it through and you reconnect or you establish that deeper level of trust, it can only further enhance your relationship. Number 4 was this on what helps to make couples last and to really make it together is that they allow each other to be themselves. There's almost no easier way to put it than that, is that sometimes you want to mold your significant other into someone that you think they should be or that you want to be with, instead of allowing that individual with all of their, intricacies and idiosyncrasies to be who they are and not forcing them to change in any way. So this is the level of compromise that most relationships need. It's just understanding that I want you to be you. I want you to chase your dreams. I'm going to chase my dreams. We're going to chase, though, also connected dreams together. Family, children, spirituality, whatever it might be. So you each have your own individual life, but you can also come together, support each other and your relationship. So you have your own lives and then you have your relationship life that matters as well. But allow that other person to be them. They can't be you. You probably wouldn't want to live with yourself either, right? That's the truth. And I think that all the time, like, I wouldn't want to live with me, right? So that's kind of some of the jokes that I also, make with my wife, like, I don't want to live with me. But at the same time, it can be amazing because we want to see all of the individuality of another person. And that's part of what I think makes life and relationships beautiful. Number 5 is that it's not the absence of arguing that allow couples to really make it that 30, 40, 50 plus years, but it's the ability to bounce back quickly from the arguments and move forward. So that a lot of couples, I think that you'll never have like great relationships, they don't argue. No, it's not about that. It's that they can have differences. Why? Because they're individuals. They see things differently. And also, like if it's a man and a woman in a relationship, you might just approach things differently. 2 men might approach things differently, 2 women, but like, because you're individuals, you don't always see things the same way. And so because of that, we want to have that respect. At times, you just have to agree to disagree. There really might not be times where you come together. Now, of course, one individual can compromise. They can say, okay, yeah, let's try that. Let's go with that. But there will be times you say, you know what, we just have to agree to disagree. It's not going to work. Can we move past this? And then, as they say, bounce back, move on, move past it if you can. Number 6 was, and it kind of goes back to number 4, but it's different, right? It's not just about allowing them to be them, their goals, their dreams, their all of that, but it's each one of us. I know never us, right? Never me. I don't have any of these, but we need to make light of each other's quirks, because if not, it'll drive us crazy. It really will, right? So if your spouse does something that drives you crazy, and it's little though, right? It could be, let's just say they always leave the toilet seat up, right? Or they, I don't even know, they never take the clothes out of the washer to the dryer for, like a day or 2, or they're always leaving dishes in the sink, or like, I'm just saying like minor things, like things that aren't like a major to do, right? If they're just little quirks, they leave their clothes on the floor. Now, again, you could make a big deal about it. You absolutely can. Like it's your prerogative. It's your relationship. You don't like that. You want it fixed. I get it. But sometimes it's like these little quirks that don't necessarily hurt anybody, right? And unless you've made like this specific deal, like I'm going to do this if you do this, which I don't necessarily know works great in relationships. It's kind of like working together instead of like doing trades. then sometimes we just have to let it go. Like, that's just like, it's part of who they are. It's the little quirks that make them them, right? So they have a lot of positives, and maybe they have some little light quirks that might be a negative. Sometimes we just need to let it go. That's it. It's part of who they are. Who knows why, right? We don't always know why. All right. The seventh one was this. There was open communication, and they had the difficult conversations. This might be the most important one out of all of them. And that's why I kind of saved it for the last as well. And I want to take this back to my practice. The men and women in my practice that were the most stressed and couldn't overcome a lot of their autoimmune issues or their deep health issues was because they were not able to, whether out of fear, safety, awkwardness, you name it, they were not able to have the difficult conversation with their spouse or significant other about the unhappiness that they were experiencing in their relationship that their spouse may or may not have even known about. And I want to qualify that. So sometimes there's real trauma and abuse in relationships, and it's a terrible thing. It's always a terrible thing. There's no good from that, not at all. And I understand why some people stay with others when those things are taking place, because relationships can be complicated. There can be children, there can be all sorts of things. What I'm talking about right now, though, is that two individuals, they don't see eye to eye on something, and one individual that's hurt by it is not expressing their hurt, their sadness to their significant other. And the significant other, when I ask her, does your partner know about this? And they said, well, I don't know. I'm like, okay, maybe they know a little bit. Do they know to the degree that it's harming you emotionally and now it's coming out physically? And they said, no, probably not. And again, I'm not a psychologist or therapist or marital counselor whatsoever. And so I can't make recommendations, nor would I ever. And all I can do is open it up and then just say, well, and again, based on safety, all those things, which I don't even make recommendations on because I'm not qualified, is that it's difficult for a person to help out their loved one if they don't know fully and honestly how something is making them feel and what it's doing to themselves, the relationship, or their health. So open communication is the number one recommendation I have. Open and honest communication. Here's the thing though. If you've been in a relationship for years and you've never had this, it's awkward to start. That's it. But it's worth it. If your relationship is worth it, then that little bit of awkwardness is worth it. It's simply starting small and just saying, hey, there's something I really want to talk with you about. And then it's using what I call from work, the sandwich technique. And it's saying to your significant other, I really love how we do this, this, and this. Or I really appreciate how you do this, this, and this. One thing that I've been having difficulty with lately is don't name a million things. Name one thing. That's what you want to work on. That's ideally what you would like to change in your relationship. You have the open and honest conversation with it, and then ending with, I really appreciate, even if it's just a conversation, I really appreciate us being open and willing to talk about this, no matter, what transpires going forward. I know it's not going to be perfect right away, but I appreciate just being able to talk about this. So not judging them, not being harsh. It's your first conversation, but allowing things to be a little bit open. Again, not providing any marital advice or counseling or anything to that degree, but whether it's a friendship, it's between parents or siblings, it's with coworkers, whoever it might be, is being able to have the difficult conversations is what allows you, though, to have the depth of the relationship. So if everything's surface level and everything's good all the time, the relationship typically isn't that deep. But when you go through things together and you have those challenging conversations, whether it be about kids or work or romance or whatever it might be, is that those conversations are typically not a one-night thing. It begins to open things up. And as you work through it, you hit that next level in your relationship. And it seems to me, and it's what Dr. Nicole LePera says as well, is that the couples that make it are willing to put in that work, are willing to say, yes, our relationship is worth it, Here's the work that we're going to do, that we need to do, that we continually need to evolve with. And because of that, we have this amazing relationship. So hopefully this was helpful. I love reading these tips. I love overall psychology, how it can help us to recommit to ourselves, to our relationships, to continue to up-level our lives. So thank you so much for all the takeaways from today's show. Head on over to stevencabral.com/3083. And of course, if the show was helpful, do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. Take care. Thanks so much for tuning into today's show. Before you go, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I want to make sure that you're getting our daily content, not missing out on anything functional medicine, wellness, weight gain, weight loss, anti-aging, living longer, stronger, and all of the most cutting-edge research. And if there's any topics you want to hear, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Take care.